In this episode of the Sam Oldham podcast, I'm joined by Stacey Ervin, the two-time back-to-back NCAA national champion with the University of Michigan. Throughout his gymnastics career, Stacey won 15 individual event titles on the floor exercise. He trained alongside Sam Mikulak under Kurt Golder during the 2016 Rio Olympic cycle, and this is his story. Stacey, it's great to have you on the show, mate. I'm really excited for this one. You're a big character. And I remember, in my early 20s, watching in particular, your floor and your vault and just how explosive you were. And I think the thing that struck me was you just looked like an athlete that ended up in gymnastics. So thank you for joining us, mate. It's great to have you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation and reflect a little bit on the career.
Yeah, you were saying just before we went live that you're not really too involved with gymnastics anymore. You went to watch the new generation of the Michigan men win that national championships last year. And that's great that I saw that you guys all get back together. That's a really cool thing that you do. I think when you leave the sport, you kind of lose that community. And so it's great that you guys get back together every now and then. And, I'm sure when you're around that team, you all fall back into the roles you used to play when you were teenagers and in your early 20s studying at university. So I'm sure that was an amazing experience. But with you, Stacey, I wanted to go back to the beginning and maybe what your childhood was like and how you ended up in the sport of gymnastics.
Yeah, so my gymnastics career sort of happened by chance, I would say. The sport is obviously not the most accessible sport for anyone, kind of anywhere. You're kind of lucky if there is a gymnastics facility in your area or even a place that offers any type of instruction. So personally, I had self-taught myself a back handspring in kindergarten after watching, a classmate do it who I also think was self-taught, just kids being kids, like, oh yeah, I could do that too. Like, check this out. So self-taught myself a back handspring, was doing that around the house, started to escalate that to doing back tucks, off of elevated surfaces, whether that be a couch, whether that be the concrete porch, whether that be whatever I could find, I was doing a back tuck off of it. And so my mom decided, like, this is a bit unsafe. I don't know if I'm comfortable with you flipping off of, our furniture, off of concrete, off of anything. So she put me into a recreational program at a local rec center. And I just remember vividly, it was like a mommy and me class, but they didn't even have the equipment to really support what we were doing. So in particular, they had us doing like balance beam, right? They have the guys doing balance beam too. And so, I'm watching these kids walk across the beam sort of timidly. Everyone's just like, oh, stepping across it. I get up there and I just like take off. I run across it. They also have us do some work on like a small bar, an uneven bar, definitely a thicker bar. And all the other kids doing stuff, being instructed, and I'm just like going. And at the end of the class, apparently they were telling my mom, like, okay, he's a little bit too advanced for what we got here. You should probably check out an actual gymnastics facility. Recommended me to Michigan Academy of Gymnastics. And from there, I did a few recreational classes. They saw some potential. I joined the pre-team team. Rest is sort of history.
Oh, amazing. So you're from Michigan, Stacey. That's where you grew up.
Correct. Yep.
Oh, that's amazing that you then went on to represent the university. And what about your family background? Athletes in your family, Stacey? Because, again, like the first thing you notice is that you're just built like an athlete.
Yeah.
So was that something that you inherited genetically through your family? Did you have siblings that were in sports as well?
So for the most part, I mean, my dad did baseball and basketball in high school, but didn't do anything collegiately. My mom, she did cheerleading in high school, but didn't do anything collegiately. And as far as my brothers and sisters, they've done sports, but my brother did football, baseball, basketball, only took his football career to college, Adrian College, which was also in Michigan, for a few years. But other than that, no, not really. I mean, I feel like I'm sort of the outlier in the sense of like development and really taking athletics anywhere outside of just the standard programming.
And was there anything that you liked about the sport initially from the get-go, Stacey, that was maybe different to other sports? Obviously, gymnastics is a very individual sport, and I think it attracts a certain type of person with a very similar mindset. They're very self-driven, determined, because quite quickly, if you don't enjoy the sport, it's hard, right, from the get-go.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I did team sports and individual sports, and that kind of like, I think the intensity of it, like really that suited me straight away. Was there something you enjoyed about the sport of gymnastics, even from those early sessions?
Yeah. I mean, even before I answer that, one thing that I always admired watching your gymnastics career was that I always felt there was a certain level of discipline and respect that you brought to not just your training, but also to competitions. And that was inspiring for me to watch. As a smaller community, there's only so many people who really can stand out. We sort of briefly spoke about that too before going live. There's only a small amount of people who really get that opportunity to stand out on like world stages. And so watching your career, alongside the time that I'm training with Sam and stuff, I'm really seeing the level of intensity, determination that it takes. So that's one thing that I always admired seeing your performances. And as far as what set it apart for me was, I think that the level of freedom and creativity that you're able to express in a gymnastics facility and environment versus other sports is what really drew me to it. At the time of starting my recreational gymnastics career, I was also doing like T-ball, right? And I remember very distinctly my mom giving me a ultimatum at one point and being like, all right, you can either do gymnastics or you could do T-ball, but you can't do both. And I was like, well, it was a no-brainer for me. Like, I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. Like, whatever. I'm not going to do T-ball anymore. Like, I'm definitely going to do gymnastics. And so I think having that freedom and creativity in that space gave me an outlet. And within that, having that freedom in a disciplined track, I think is what really set it off for me as being like my go-to.
And was it an easy journey for you in the beginning, starting a sport like gymnastics? I think back to when we were kids, Stacey, like in the UK, it wasn't very cool to do men's gymnastics. Like, even in my family, right? My family was a soccer background, as you would call it, like football for us over here. There was kind of like, gymnastics? Isn't that a girls' sport type thing? What was it like over in the States back when you started? Now it's huge, right? Like, and the guys that go to the Olympics and they do well, they're like big superstars, and there's a lot of respect put on the sport of men's gymnastics, I think, that maybe didn't exist 20 years ago. What was that like for you in the beginning, starting within a sport that's dominated really by the women's side?
Yeah, I think being in men's gymnastics is sort of a challenge, probably just as much now as it was then. Why? Kids are mean, dude. Kids can be vicious, bro. They don't care. They have no filter. So, like, if they're thinking it, they're saying it. Even if it's not based off anything true, factual, or what have you, like, they're just saying it. So it was a bit of a challenge to really commit to the sport based off of the feedback from peers at the time. But as you will know, having gone through that same experience, it's like, what they're saying really doesn't matter, because what you're feeling when you're in that flow state at your practice, in your competitions, what have you, it definitely surpasses everything that you're hearing from these outside voices who have zero idea of what is actually being cultivated, what it takes, or what you can even do. Because even in the same breath, the people who would be trying to talk some type of smack, you do a back tuck and all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, that's so cool. It's like, yeah, you think I just figured that out? In my case, I did. But like, you think I just figured that out by not doing something tracked in a specific way, you know? So yeah, it could be a bit challenging. And I mean, look, my name is also Stacey. So like, bro, I was Stacey doing gymnastics, you know what I mean? Kids had a field day on it, but like, maybe that's just part of why that tenacity was grown to continue to push forward and make something of myself in the sport.
And from an early age, Stacey, did you show a real strength in terms of the power events? Was it something that stood out from the get-go? And what is that like when I look at you, you're so physically strong. When you're so strong in one area, does that also come with its challenges when it comes to the other apparatus, right? Gymnastics, when you start out in the beginning, you're not a specialist. You don't focus on one event. You're doing all six. You have to master the whole human body, right? And whether that's flexibility, strength, balance, spatial awareness, power, your ability to compete, perform under pressure, on all of these different apparatus, you might be really strong in one area, but then, my own experience, I can remember getting very, very strong on rings at one point when I was in my early 20s because I was injured and I couldn't train on floor or vault. And then when I came back to try and do pommel horse, I was like, this is now a problem because I can't swing so well. What was that like, being so physically dominant and strong in one area? And what challenges did you face in the beginning on maybe some of the other events?
Yeah, I agree entirely with what you're saying. I think different body types and propensities definitely play a factor in gymnastics. As you said, you don't specialize when you're in junior gymnastics. You're literally training all around all the time. And that's because why? Because you don't know what you're going to end up being good at, really. Yeah, you might have your proclivities. You might have a propensity of being better at one event than another, but sometimes it does flip-flop. Sometimes that does shift and change. For me, it did stay pretty consistent. Floor, vault being the two that came most naturally to me. I think that was obviously a blessing in the sense that it allowed me to excel in those events, and finding ways to improve my abilities on the other events definitely was more of a challenge than it was in those two specific apparatus, because you know how it goes. Pommel horse is much different than floor, different than rings, much different than parallel bars, high bar, all of them. They're all different. And so the challenge was learning how to translate what I was good at on one event into another. And this is one thing actually that, if there are young gymnasts watching, still in the sport, still active, one thing that I really wish I had thought of or had been instructed on while I was in the sport was understanding that in a decathlon, there's 10 events, right? You're not going to approach the javelin like you would the long jump. I don't know what the decathlete is, but you wouldn't approach the two events with the same level of mind. Mm-hmm. There's a different level of mind that you have to bring to each different event. And so for me, I believe that one thing that inhibited me from making progress, totally my responsibility, was I approached every event with the same level of mind. Meaning, I'm going to floor, I'm locked in, I'm ready, let's power through this, let's get it done. Floor, I understand this. I go to pommel horse, and I'm essentially looking at that event the same way that I was looking at it when I was on floor. And not having that understanding of approaching it with a different level of mind, a different tempo of thought, a different spacing and pacing, I think inhibited some of my growth as a gymnast. And now looking back, I can understand at times when I was doing better, I was giving each event its own, compartmentalization of skills, tempo, and what have you.
That's a really interesting point, Stacey, because I think that's a mistake that a lot of young athletes and senior athletes make as well, right? When I would approach, let's say, the vault, the mindset I've got to be in to do a dragolescu is very different to the mindset that I need to be in to do a high bar routine. They're completely different. High bar is about rhythm and flow. I'm using words that, it's not speed, aggression, it's very different. And your nervous system responds to the words you're using inside your head, right? And I think as a young athlete, typically you approach, like you said, those six apparatus in the same way, but they're not. They're their own individual sports in many ways, and they have a different terminology that come with them, and maybe that's where you need a really high level coach that's experienced that maybe to understand that and can start that path at a young age. But no, that was a brilliant point, mate. I don't often think about that, and I think a lot of young athletes maybe do make that mistake. So brilliant. Well, who was your inspiration when you were growing up, Stacey? Was there gymnasts you were looking to? Was it other athletes, other sports people, maybe people you trained with? Who were the people that really motivated you growing up when you were a young gymnast?
Yeah, so in my area, I was sort of the top gymnast in the state of Michigan. So in order to gain inspiration and really challenge myself to see what's possible or what's being done, I really had to be active in being a fan of the sport and looking to other people. So yes, there were the peers at the time, right? I'm like Sam, we got Jake Dalton, Steven Legendre, these guys who I was already aware of, but then internationally looking at like Fabian Hambukin, Kohei, we're talking Jordan Jakchev, we're talking going back into watching, Dragulescu for sure for me, because like vault is just crazy. But so many, Alexei Nemov, like I could really keep going, but like I had to be very vigilant and diligent of seeking people who were already doing great things in the sport in order to like fuel some type of motivation or next level thinking. Because otherwise I would have just kept getting pats on the back at my gym, like, oh, you're doing great, and like that good is the enemy of great. Mm-hmm. And so I would have been complacent had I not been actively seeking, people who are doing amazing things. And it's a little bit more challenging in gymnastics, right? Because it's not a televised sport. It's not like something that, you're watching if someone's growing up playing basketball or someone's playing, football in the United States, like you're seeing that very frequently. It's like all that's talked about. And so you can immediately cast that vision versus a sport like gymnastics or, I'm sure wrestlers probably have the same thing where it's like, I have to be active in seeking who it is I'm going to, input as an inspiration.
Yeah, that, again, mate, as soon as you're explaining that, I'm just thinking of geographic how big America is. And with the sport of men's gymnastics not being that big, I guess that makes the college system so important, because you need to get those guys, keep them in the sport long enough till they can get to a community of others that they can then work together with and then be inspired by the guys around them, right? I imagine what happens is in a lot of those artistic gyms, you become the best gymnast very quickly. And then all of a sudden, like, who do I beat next? Because you want to always be surrounding yourself with people that are the level above you, right? But if you're the best gymnast in the state already at 14, 15, that's very difficult. And so it makes so much sense that you were looking externally for that motivation. And now, as soon as you were saying that, I was thinking, wow, that really explains why the college system is so important and why it's a real benefit for you guys over there in the States. Because really over here in the UK, there is no other avenue than trying to make it onto the World Championship team or the Olympic team. There's no real like university program like that. That just doesn't exist. So, that makes so much sense, mate. And then at what point does gymnastics get very serious, Stacey, and you're starting to think, well, maybe I could have a career in this sport?
Mm-hmm. I'd say around maybe like, it's kind of challenging to say, because even being a part of like they had the Future Stars program, which was like a developmental program for like a fast track. Not really a fast track, because if you don't have the skills, it's not fast at all. But like they had a program called Future Stars, which sort of begins to steer you in the direction of, thinking national team, thinking senior national team, international assignments, all of the things that they would be developing for, World Championship selection, Olympic team, etc. And I'd say that happened around, I want to say 2006 or 7. I made the Future Stars developmental team, national developmental team. So I think that's when things really started to get more serious. And I would say that sounds like it's about, 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
And even still throughout that time, like, there's still the doubts of like, oh, well, I just want to like go hang out with my friends, or I just want to do this, or, just like thinking as a kid would. But during that Future Stars developmental transition, that's when my mind started to get open more to like seeing kids from different regions in the country, starting to form those relationships, seeing them from different states, everyone kind of coming together for those Future Stars program competitions, whether that's regionally or nationally, seeing the U.S. Olympic Training Center at the time, and just being exposed to that stuff is like very critical to someone's development and someone's ability to cast that vision for themselves, right? Because if you can see it, then you can be it. And so before having those experiences, you're still in a sense detached from it, but although you're still working at it, you're still sort of removed from that situation. So that's why I say I've been very fortunate in my path in gymnastics, because, if the coaches aren't, privy to those opportunities, they're not even going to extend them. If they're not serious, they're not going to push you for them. If your family's not willing to travel, then you're not going to take those experiences. Sometimes I just travel with my coach too, like my mom wouldn't be able to make it.
Yeah.
Financially, it would be more of a hardship. So like being able to have those experiences was instrumental to my success in sport.
When did you start to think about college, Stacey? And also, what does that look like? I think for Guy, again, I'm talking about that group we've got in the UK. I'm thinking you guys could potentially go to the States and get a full scholarship and a degree paid for. Over here in the UK, that's going to cost you so much money. That's a great option. And then at 21, you could have graduated with a degree, come back, and then have a whole career in the sport of gymnastics. So what does that system look like? When do you start to think about it? Did the universities start to try to recruit the gymnasts, years prior to them being of age to go to university? Because I don't think over here in the UK or in Europe, we really understand that system and how it works.
Mm-hmm. So technically, you're not able to recruit someone, I want to say, until their junior year.
Okay.
You could start that conversation with them. But what a lot of colleges will do is they'll host summer camps, like overnight summer camps or commuter summer camps, whatever, in which you can go and the coaches are coaching the events. They have some of their athletes at the time. The student athletes are coaching and leading the camps. It's actually a really great way to get introduced to the coaching staff, the culture that the teams provide, the facilities, the campuses, etc. So I went to the University of Michigan's gymnastics camp probably 5 or 6 summers.
Wow.
And so I had an established relationship with them prior to recruiting eligibility even being on the table. So that's something that is, very instrumental in developing those relationships. And really, when it comes down to it, life is all relationships. So really making sure that you're putting yourself in those positions helps a ton. And summer camps in general, I went to so many different gymnastics summer camps to learn from, Olympians, meeting the Ham twins at camp in Indiana, or going to Ohio for a camp down there with a local regional gym, or regional camps, national team camps, etc. Those are just important because, like we said, if you become the top dog in your gym, well, then you're either going to rest on your laurels, or you're going to have to find a way to continually inspire yourself. And one of those ways is going to those camps. So, and especially in the collegiate track, again, if you get the opportunity to go to one of those college summer camps, you gotta take it, because you're establishing relationships and you're putting your name and your skills and everything you're doing in front of the coach's eyes.
And are most of the top US men, are they getting full scholarships, Stacey? What scholarship did you get were you offered at Michigan? And how many of those scholarships can the team offer out each season?
Yeah, so I think each program has their own financial limits and what they're able to spend. Okay. I gratefully was a full scholarship athlete.
Amazing.
Some people are offered 10%, which would just be it covers their books. Some people might be 75%, which I believe covers tuition. So it really just depends on how things are divvied up. And I'm sure that has changed too recently in the States with the NIL deals and stuff going through. I'm not even entirely sure how all those work, but scholarship wise, all that is really dependent upon how much money a program has to offer, but also how a coach decides to divvy it up amongst his athletes.
And in terms of the education side of that, Stacey, is that something where, the education was really a byproduct to the gymnastics for you, or was education always a big part of, your childhood, I guess, and maybe some of the values that your parents instilled in you, not to just focus everything on the gymnastics side of things?
To be honest, I wish I had focused even more on my education. Not that it slacked or not that it was lacking. I think I graduated with a 3.2 from the University of Michigan, which is a challenging institution. So my academics were definitely a focus. It's not like they were just an aside and not something that I felt like I had to do in order to just compete. But there is definitely that balance of like, okay, I really have to focus heavily on my gymnastics here.
Yeah.
Okay, and now I have to really focus heavily on my schooling. But it really, again, comes down to how the individual sort of divvies that up and handles it for themselves, because some of the team members would be, you know, under a very strict course of study. You know, we're talking like mechanical engineering, biochemical engineering, pre-med, you know, what have you. Like, there are a lot of challenging majors that people will undertake while they're doing gymnastics, and that I've seen become a stressor for sure. But it's not something that I would say detracts from the experience. I think it really just gives everybody, you know, their opportunity to make the most of what's being offered to them at the time.
When I was doing my research for this episode, Stacey, I always have a look at, you know, people's career, anything that I might find online. And I sadly read that your mum had passed away just before you had headed to the University of Michigan. And I'm really sorry for that, mate. And I certainly don't want to ask you to talk about that if you don't want to. But one thing I did watch was that short documentary that you did with the University of Michigan. I just wondered what role gymnastics played in your life at that time then. Did it become one of the real pillars that you could focus on, and how important is sport, do you think, for all young people, whether you've been through something very tragic like that, you've faced your own trauma, how important, what role did the sport of gymnastics have in your life at that time, which I imagine must have been just a very confusing time as a young man, right?
Yeah, certainly. I'd say that the sport itself played a very pivotal role in that moment, because it did give me something to focus on. Just that transition was severe. You know what I mean? Not only are you coping with the loss of a parent, but also now going into college, now being in an entirely different environment, being more so independent, for lack of a better word, you know, living in your dorm and making sure that you're getting to class on time, et cetera. So it really gave me something to focus on, which I'm extremely grateful for. It's not like I had this endless amount of time on my hands that I was just like, what do I do right now? Like, I'm just dealing with this. No, it was more so something that gave me the ability to focus those energies. And although there were clearly low moments, the real benefit of that time being that not only could I focus on gymnastics, but now I'm surrounded by teammates. Now I'm surrounded by guys I've known for years, who I've trained with, who obviously are like brothers to me now. And it was, as unfortunate of a circumstance as that is, it is also fortunate that I was brought into that type of culture and community at that same time.
Yeah. And I think about like the guys you were around. I mean, we spent time, you spoke about him a little bit earlier, we spent time with Fabian Hambuchen about a year ago. And the guy is so positive. I just couldn't believe. And I know he came out to Michigan to train at the university for a while. He's good friends with Sam. And when we chatted to Fabian, he was like, you have to chat to Sam. I was like, why? And he was like, that guy changed my mindset. I was like, your mindset? You're like one of the greatest of all time. And he was like, yeah, when I spoke to him and spent time around him and went to the University of Michigan, you know, I realized, like, you've got to really enjoy this. Like, you have to be positive, you know? And it's interesting when I then looked back at competing with Fabian around that time, there really was a shift in his mindset. This guy looked like he was going out and having the most fun in the world, while I was feeling like under so much pressure. What was it like then during that real difficult time in your life? How important was it to be around those guys and you were all kind of building towards this thing of winning? Look, winning national NCAA championship titles is hard. Like, those top teams are strong, right? And you guys did that two years back to back. How important was it to be around that positive energy in a really difficult point in your personal life?
Yeah, extremely impactful, because the culture and the chemistry that we built as a team is the most foundational aspect of like a championship culture. And that's something that's overlooked very frequently, because people want to think that just like skills and systems win championships. And that's true to an extent. Yes, if you don't have the skills, you're not going to have the ability to contend for a national championship. If you don't have the systems, then you're also probably going to be derailed at some point because you weren't, you know, in a track to make sure that you completed the goal. But having that positivity and that positive mental attitude pervasive throughout all of what we were doing is so crucial, because even in the low moments, now you're still getting someone else is going to be, positive. If you're having a low day, somebody else is going to be on top of it and still feeling good. So it was very, very crucial, and it definitely has left a lasting impact on me. And kudos also to Kurt Golder. I mean, one of his biggest coaching philosophies is positive mental attitude. Like, if you don't have a positive mental attitude, you might as well throw your goal out the window, because first of all, you're going to succumb to whatever negative influences are coming to infiltrate and derail you from that situation. So having that positive mental attitude as part of a cultural foundation, and then seeing that already be an important facet of several individuals' character on the team, I think was absolutely pivotal.
What did you learn, Stacey, from watching Kurt Golder operate? And at a university, I imagine, in a lot of club settings, maybe you've got 4 senior guys to manage. And they might have all different personalities, and they've got different ambitions and different things that are motivating them, and they want to achieve different levels of success, right, within the sport. When you see somebody operate and have to manage 20 guys, 25 guys, what did you learn about leadership? And what were some of the things that maybe stood out that you saw in him that you went, oh, that's somebody that knows exactly what he's doing, and he's, when you look back to winning those 2 back-to-back national championships, what key maybe moments or points in the seasons, or was there anything that stands out from his leadership that you go, I remember that moment and that really played a big role in us going on to have the success that we had?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've personally known Kurt, like I said, going to those gymnastics camps as a child. I've known Kurt since I was probably, 10 years old, maybe even younger than that. And so one thing that really stands out is his consistency throughout those years that I've known him. He was always very consistent in how he presented himself and how he was coming across, but also very consistent in his level of positivity and very consistent in how he approached his team members, right? And he had to make a shift for himself at some point, because he was finding himself overstressed and overtaxed. And he, found that he had to make a shift and create a positive mental attitude in order to sustain what he was doing. Mm. But the main thing that I will always recall from him is that I remember him being so, for lack of a better word, he's just like one of the most loving, positive guys that I've ever met in my life. I have so much admiration and respect for Kurt because of how he treats everybody he comes into contact with. He's not, trying to brush somebody off. He's offering people opportunities. He's giving them second chances. He's giving them third chances. He's giving people a opportunity. That was always his big thing, just giving people opportunity. And at the time, sometimes you don't understand it when you're young. You're like, well, this guy's not really like pulling his own weight. Like, what the heck? Like, why don't we like cut him? We can get somebody else on here. We can make this work. But Kurt is very much so like, give somebody who has the heart for the opportunity the chance to make the most of it and nurture them in that opportunity and watch what happens. And, you've spoken with Psych, right? Like, Psych is a prime example of that. Walk on to the University of Michigan men's gymnastics team, and ends up being Bangladesh's first Olympian. Multiple, I don't even know how many All-American Psych has. 4, 5, 6, just a phenomenal athlete, but he had to be given the opportunity. And without Kurt being in that position that he was in and having that positive, nurturing attitude, stories like Sykes would have turned out much different.
Just tell me about winning those national championships, Stacey, in particular the second one in 2014. If I'm correct, I think that was in Michigan. Is that right? It was in where you guys compete, am I right? Or was that somewhere else?
The 2014 championship?
Yeah.
That was at Chrysler Center. Yeah. Okay. That was amazing. So 2013, let me take you back to 2012. This is how the following 2 years actually come to be. because 2012 is my freshman season national championship. We had a really talented team. Very much so the same team that we took on to win the next 2 years. But my freshman year, we were very talented, but we were underdeveloped and a little bit immature. We were very heavy on freshman and sophomore. So, like, I want to say maybe 3/4 of the team was in our first 2 years of, college. And so we had a great team, went to Big Ten championships that year, had a great season, went to Big Ten championships. We got second place to Illinois at Big Ten championships. Devastated. Dang, we could have won that. We had a few key mistakes, whatever. Illinois had a great team, great competition. We go on to Oklahoma, which is where NCAA was hosted that year, and we had prepared for it. We were feeling good. Day one, we were the top team heading into day two of competition. We celebrated after day one, seeing us as the first team as if we had literally just won the national championship. Like, that type of level of immaturity is what I'm talking about. And, you can only be faulted so much. We just don't know what we don't know. And it's not the coaches are going to be like, shut up, like, we got another day. Like, they were very much so allowing us to do what we were doing because our energy was that of, like, we're going to get this done. But when you celebrate day one as if you won, you kind of already fooled yourself. And so we go into day two of competition, and it wasn't the same, right? We kind of already did what we came to do from day one. And so we end up not taking home that national championship. I want to say we got third, I believe. I try to block it out of my memory as best I can because, Illinois took it that year, and then I want to say it was Oklahoma and then us. And that bus ride back was just the most, from the arena to the hotel. Everyone I could just remember it being the most, like, somber, like, quiet, most devastated, disgusted feeling that I've ever felt with a collective of men. Like, we were just like, what just happened? Like, how did we let that happen? And so we all had a team meeting and really just decided, like, that's never going to happen again. And if you're okay with that happening again, you can feel free to leave your grips. You can feel free to leave your bag, and you could go home, because we don't need any type of influence outside of what we want infiltrating this team, this culture, what we have going on here. And so we stuck to that. The next, even that summer, going into summer training, so many guys stayed to train throughout the summer, which doesn't typically happen. Like, I would say the majority of our team stayed throughout the summer to take classes, train, get better, improve, make some improvements for the next season. And then, we go into the next season, 2013 season, and we're rolling. We're not like 100%, but like we're cooking up. And we get to Big Ten championships, which is in Minnesota. We take that Big Ten championship, amazing competition. We just really felt like we were gelling and peaking at the right time. Incredible to do that with those gentlemen. That's the year I also won the Big Ten floor championship as an individual. That was like a really highlight moment for me. And then we took it to Penn State for NCAA championships. And at this point, not that we were feeling like overconfident, but we were very confident in who we were as a team and how we were competing. And so we went out there, handled our business. Day one, excellent competition. Everyone's rolling through, doing their thing. We're like in the lead, but we learned from last year. We were in the lead. We said, all right, that's it. Like, we got another day of competition. Everybody chill. So then, we come back day two, and we're just like on fire, having fun, having the greatest time. Like, that was the essence of our team, is like, if we're having fun, we're going to do well. And so we just went out, business trip, but having a great time. We took that 2013 national championship. And that's when really, not obviously because you can't predict what's going to happen the following season, but we already knew what our goal was. And like the way that we had, rolled into that first championship year, we took the same principles and applied that through the summer and through the next season. And we were really, really cooking up. So in 2014, we were completely undefeated.
Wow.
We walked through the season, victory after victory, felt amazing. Big Ten championships comes up, and everyone's feeling pretty good. a little beat up at the end of the season, but feeling extremely confident. Like, not cocky in the sense of like, oh, we're just going to beat everybody because we're the best. No, we were just like, we've done so much work. We've done all the things that we know we need to do, that if we lose this is on us. This is ours to lose. We're not going here just to win a championship. We're going here to solidify the work that we've been doing. And so we go into Big Tens at Nebraska 2014. We're starting on vault, have a great vault rotation. Everyone's killing it. Move on to parallel bars, and that is when I want to say second up in the lineup, maybe leadoff guy. And nope, second up. I go up, Hanma, first skill in my routine. As I'm swinging through to that handstand, that's when my bicep tears. And I'm like, oh, shit. I'm like, all right, something's happening. So I swing up through that Hanma. I realize that my biceps are already completely torn. And I'm like, okay, if I can get through this next skill, like, I'm going to just take this skill by skill. So I go peach, handstand. All right, I'm fine. All right. Go giant. I'm like, okay, I'm still okay. I push off that arm for a Diamondov, and I'm like, oh my God, like, no pain or anything, but I'm like, this is crazy. I can feel that it's completely severed at this point. But I'm thinking in my head, I remember vividly thinking, like, if I fall, though, it's totally fine because I could just claim injury. There will be no impact to the team score. Like, we could scratch. It was 5-up-5 count. So, like, I was like, if I go down because of injury, no problem. We could just make sure that, you know, I was injured. That's why, replace me, whatever. But I was like, if I can get through this skill by skill, we'll be good. Because the team did need my score.
Okay.
We had some alternates, but the alternate score kind of dropped off probably by like upwards of 4/10. So, like, just wanting to make sure that we had the best chance. And I was doing everything I could. So go stutz, front up rise, front 1 3/4, long hang swing, moy to the end of the bars, pirouette, peach glide, L press. And I'm thinking for this discipline, I'm like, how am I going to push off of this arm for a double pike right now? Like, this is really the moment of truth. And so, like, I push off, do a wonky double pike, small hop. And as soon as I land, I look at my arm and my bicep is just like hanging right down here. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's definitely torn. Salute the judge. Kurt's running up to me. I go, Kurt, I just tore my bicep. And I like run over to the training room staff. And I'm like, okay, what do we do now? Because I was supposed to be up on 3 other events that night as well. And I just remember thinking, like, got a solid score for the team on parallel bars. Went over there and just kept thinking, like, the rest of the night, like, guys, we got this. Like, we have to be able to, like, pull this championship off. So we go through the competition, people filling in the spots, making sure that they're doing everything they can. Gratefully, we still win Big Ten championships. I'm freaking out. We're all like, oh my God, how do we just pull this off? You know, crazy injury. We got, you know, this championship still coming through. And I remember speaking with the training staff, and they're like, so do you want to, you know, get surgery now, or do you want to try and, like, wait until after NCAAs? I was like, well, if I can wait, you know, then I'm going to wait. I want to compete at NCAAs in front of our home crowd. There's no chance that I wouldn't want to do that. And so we're training the next 2 weeks. You know, I'm just thinking, like, how am I going to pull this off? I hadn't had this, you know, repaired yet or anything. And there were just a few things that we changed about my routines to just kind of minimize the tweaks from the biceps or the strain on it. And when we walked into Chrysler, you know, training those 2 weeks, we're still just building our momentum, like, still just building our momentum and belief. And then when we walk into Chrysler that night, I just remember from night 1, we were just like, night 1, we're not worried about anything. Let's just get to day 2. That's it. Like, just do your job, go out there, we'll get to day 2. Had a great competition. The crowd is extremely hype. It's, you know, a chance at repeating in front of a home crowd. Everyone's super excited. And so we're just going through our competition, business-minded as usual, getting it done, having fun. But then walking into the arena for night 2, I've never seen that place more packed until this championship that Michigan won last year in the same building. Oh, my God. I get goosebumps thinking about it. I mean, This stuff is obviously still important to me. All this back here is literally like a recountance of all that stuff. So it's like a championship book that just kind of goes through set by set for us. And then you can see the 2 trophies up here. But it's walking into that building night 2 is just like a dream come true, you know, being a Michigan man my whole life, walking into that building knowing like, hey, we have a great chance at winning this back-to-back tonight. This is going to be incredible. And all of us, after our first pommel horse routine, we started on pommel horse in a championship meet. I don't know, it was like an anti-superstition. You know, we're like, if we can get pommel horse done, we're good. Our first guy up, Nolan Novak, hits his pommel horse routine. And I think that, like, again, you don't know what's going to happen in a gymnastics competition ever. But, like, when he hit that first pommel horse routine, like, literally all of us just kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, no, we're winning tonight. Like, this is it. This is it. And so we go through that competition and we're just, like, rocking on all cylinders. We're firing on all cylinders. And, man, it was one of those moments, and I'm sure you've experienced this too, 100%. You know when you are in a moment that you've dreamed of or like had visions of, and you have to just like stop while you're in it, and you just look around to take it in and fully comprehend and understand, like, I'm standing in what I was thinking of this whole time. Like, that was one of those moments. And I remember being over by parallel bars before I had to do my routine, just looking up in the crowd and thinking like, wow, like this is what we were really building towards. And it was 100% worth it. All of the pain, blood, sweat, tears, all of it, 100% worth it to see the faces of my teammates, the faces of the people in the audience, the energy that we were all feeling and cultivating in that moment. It was absolutely incredible. And so when we got through to the end of that competition and Sam is the last guy up on floor, and when I tell you, I've never seen, have you seen his floor routine from 2014?
Yeah, he spoke about it because obviously you teed him up, Stacey, and you did your floor routine, and then Sam explained to me what a golden sombrero was. I didn't know what that was, and then I went back on after the conversation with him. I went back and I was like, I got to watch this routine now, and I saw it, and yeah, obviously every stuck landing, you can see the energy, the emotion, and you almost can kind of see like the 4 years of build up to that moment in his the way that he celebrates, and obviously celebrates with you guys as a team in that arena. Yeah, a real special moment. So yes. Yeah, pretty unbelievable.
Incredible. Just like you said, you nailed it. Like that was literally it. Like gone out, did my routine, super stoked, but to watch him see every single pass just like stuck, like, and that emotion, the pure shake, the shake that he lets out when he sticks his final dismount, was just like absolutely incredible. Because it's such a storybook way to end his career also as, one of the greatest gymnasts to have ever been at the University of Michigan. Honestly, in the United States, really. Yeah. But to see him end his collegiate career with such a, for lack of a better word, like perfect routine, like was just incredible to witness. And then to cap it off with, us winning the national championship because of that, like, man, it was definitely one of the top experiences in my entire life. I'm so grateful to have experienced that with those guys.
What did you learn, Stacey, from, Sam became one of the like highest performing gymnasts in the world, right? He competed right up there with the very, very best. What did you learn from being about him, about what it takes to get to the very pinnacle of the sport?
Mm-hmm. I'd say the work ethic. You hear it from the greats of all sports, really, is like the amount of work that he put in, I think largely goes overlooked because of how good he is. I think people get the misconception that he's just super talented and like, yeah, he does, enough work to be good. But to be honest, he was one of the hardest workers that we had because he would be spending time after everyone's already gone, making sure that he's foam rolling, making sure he's stretching out, making sure he's conditioning. All those auxiliary things that like don't seem to matter in the moment are all those things that are creating that compound interest of that effect of like, you're really going to be able to take off because you're getting the recovery in. You're steeping your mind in the environment that you're in. You're still reflecting on what went well, what went wrong, how can I get better, like what needs improvement, what needs fine tuning. So like all of those little things really added to him being the gymnast that he was. And I think that that's something that I really took from him was understanding that the extra mile and that extra effort really always pays off. Might not immediately seem that it will, but it always pays off.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, mate. I think a lot of people, whether it's more a reflection of themselves and they want to say, well, he just made it because he was talented, right? Because they're not willing to put in that work. But even a step further than that, I don't think it's just enough to work hard at the actual thing. Like, a lot of guys can go to the gym and work just as hard as everybody else, but then they're like, I'm not going to do the recovery. I'm not going to eat well. I'm not going to go to sleep. I'm not going to... It's all of that together. And those bits that you don't see outside of the gym are that's the hard bit, right? The gym is actually quite exciting. That's kind of the fun bit, right? But it's the other bits and pieces that you add in there that really nobody sees, not even the people that you train with. That's probably the bit that makes the difference maybe between the good and the great in my experience. Mm-hmm. Stacey, do you feel like you fell victim, in terms of on the national scene, of being really good on events that loads of gymnasts were really good on at the same time? Because you were so good on floor and vault, but you had so many strong floor and vault workers. You spoke of a few of them earlier, Jake Dalton, Steve Legendre. Like, you were so strong as a nation on floor and vault. It was really so difficult for you to break into that national team. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that I had to really challenge myself in order to actually make the national team in 2013, because USAG had set up a point system that was like intended to reward people based on their placements at, outside of making the team outright, via all around or winning an event, what have you. And so they had a point system that was based on your placing. You get a certain allocation of points based off of those, and then they would choose from that bracket of points who got the selections to national team. And I remember like 3 times, at least like 3 national competitions, like Winter Cup or USA Gymnastics, like nationals. Winter Cup was like Winter Nationals, and then we had Summer Nationals. I remember like 2 or 3 times having been in the top 3 of that point selection system, not making the team outright, and then them going beneath me to like select people to the team. And I'm like losing my mind at that point, because I'm like, bro, what do I have to do? Like, you made this point system and you're still selecting people with lower points. And that was just like the victim mentality in me at that time, which was like, you guys. But the truth of the matter is, they didn't need me on the team because I already had the people doing what I was doing. And they were doing it very well, like very well. World Championship, well. And so Olympic level, well. So they didn't really need those events, but they would go for, the rings guys who had less points on that system, the pommel horse guys who had less points on that system. And so I just got to the point where I was like, well, fine then. If you guys aren't going to reward me off this point system, I guess I'm just going to have to like make this outright and do it myself. Like, and so I remember being hell-bent on making the national team in 2013, like sticky notes and like inspirational messages, like on my wall, like reminders in my phone to like ping me to like, register something mentally to like stay locked in, and had a tremendous, and then, we're coming off the first national championship that summer as well. And I made the national team then, which was great. Still didn't even have any national assignments pinned off of that one. But it was definitely one of those things where I was like, man, we're just so strong on these events. It makes it challenging to really make an impact for the team. Because if you're great at pommel horse, everybody needs someone who's great at pommel horse. It don't matter what country, where you're at, like everyone needs someone who's great at pommel horse. And I was not.
Yeah, it's really interesting, isn't it? How just, sometimes you have to be kind of born at the right time and be needed in the right place. We're in the UK right now, we're really, really strong on pommel horse and vault. And rings. Sorry, on floor, vault, and rings. And traditionally in the past, probably in your generation, we're really good on pommel horse, right? And it just, things kind of change. And right now, the US, you're now really strong on pommel horse, right? And a little bit weaker on some of the other events. So, sometimes I just look at guys and I go, you're just born at the wrong time. Like, you don't fit, if you represented another country, you might be a world finalist or a world medalist on that apparatus. But I guess, they're the cards that you're dealt, and you kind of have to live with that. Can you just take me through, Stacey, like when I was doing a little bit of a YouTube search and watching some of your best performances, the floor routine you did at the 2015, I think it was the US Nationals or the P&G Championships on day one, where you score like 15.8 off a 6.8.
Yeah.
What's it like? What does it feel like being able to perform a routine like that? Obviously, you see at the end, you stick a double pike Arabian as your last tumble, which is unbelievable. But when you're going through those tumbles from start to finish, what does it feel like to be that powerful? And the reason I ask is, like, I can't fathom what it must feel like to be as strong as the strongest guys on rings. Like, I can't understand what it's like doing a Maltese and it feel like doing an L-sit, right?
Right.
But also, what does it feel like being that powerful and that fast twitched? When you do a double straight Arabian, it's like effortless. Technically, that is an incredibly difficult skill. What did it feel like performing that routine in 2015, Stacey?
I remember specifically being very flow state for that particular routine. That was one of those routines where I had done so much preparatory work that I was very confident in just allowing myself to be as powerful as I could be. So it really just felt like being, for lack of a better word, it was just like the most controlled level of hyper-aggression that you could feel. So like doing front double full to front double tug and being in control enough of that, and then Arabian double layout, and then I think back 2.5, punch front half, back 1.5, Rudy, laid out Thomas, Arabian double pike. Like every single pass, I just felt like I had permission to give it my all. And the key being, I just remember Kurt always giving me like the pointer, like, just always think of just taking a small hop forward. A lot of those were blind landing passes. So like the first two are blind landings. And what's the tendency? The tendency is to try and stick. So like kick out and you're going to like sit back, right? And you obviously don't want the fall. So like it was always the idea to like take a small hop forward. So anything you did, like be as powerful as you could, but prepare yourself just for a small hop forward. And so it was like this really delicate balance of like hyper aggressive to be as quick as you could and as powerful as you could, but controlled enough to know that like you want to be maybe hopping forward a little bit, It definitely was an incredible feeling though, for sure.
Yeah, just an amazing routine, mate. A routine that I think would still be competitive today, which says a lot. I think, particularly on that apparatus, you were great on floor as well. But, for me as a gymnastics fan, you certainly achieved mastery on that one apparatus. I would maybe say that, I got close to that maybe on high bar. And I think on those apparatus, you really have a deep level of understanding of how the apparatus works, how to manipulate your own body, and you're probably capable of doing nearly all of the skills on that apparatus. And I certainly, feel that you had that on those apparatus. What was your transition out of gymnastics like, Stacey, and what was the pathway that your life took when you decided to hang up the handguards and go into the next chapter of your life?
Absolutely. I will answer that question, but since I have you, I do want to ask you as far as like your take on high bar, because I would agree with you, like very much so, like a master of that event. What is it that you were feeling on that from day to day? Earlier you said like rhythm and flow. Is that typically like the level of mind that you brought to that? Because I remember anytime I watch your high bar routines, I'm just thinking like bro's going up there, he's swinging. Like, he just knows.
Yeah.
Like, he just gets it.
Well, it's funny, like the last thing I would always say to myself when my coach would lift me onto the bar was, don't think, just do. Quite interesting. When I was a kid, I used to love the film Top Gun, and the sequel to Top Gun, he says that in the film. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my God, I used to say that to myself inside my head. But when I have a tendency of overthinking, but the goal, right, is to be in that state of flow where you're not reacting, everything is just happening, right? And the times that I was able to produce that in those big pressured moments were the times where, like you said, I'd done all of the work, so I was able to just press that autopilot button and let it flow. And I didn't reach that level many times in my career because the volume of work that you needed to do to get to that stage was so significant that I think you can only reach that level a few times throughout your career. And you maybe felt that in the build-up to the 2014 NCAAs, maybe that 2015 routine. Like, really, when I think back, there were a few times in my career I felt like I'd reached almost my potential and my peak. And for high bar, that was a lot about, it was the mindset of it. In particular, it was like an unwavering confidence in my ability to catch that bar. But the thing with high bar is like it's a delicate balance. Exactly what you just spoke about on floor. It's exactly the same thing. It's an aggression and a fearlessness to finish the action and put that release just at arm's length from the bar, right? Which is a scary thing to do because when you're under pressure, you want to tense up and pull it in close just to make sure you catch. But if you do that, it's not going to work because you have to be in flow. And you have to, I think of all the apparatus in gymnastics, on a high bar, you have to be at one and work with the bar. If you work against it, it won't work. You have to understand how the bar moves and you really have to work with it. Those days where I'd go in and I'd try and do a bar routine and it felt like I was working against it, it felt like I was... I think I dropped the mic there, Sam. I think it felt like it was a conditioning session rather than it being a high bar session, if that makes sense. So for me, it was all about that, mate. What a great question. But the difference, I think, when I would perform floor, because I was a good floor worker as well, maybe never got to the same level, but I think for floor, for me, it was more about the timing and the aggression and my ability to produce force at speed and then control it on the other end of that. Whereas high bar really was about understanding. I used to say something to the younger gymnasts and they used to think it was a joke. And I used to say, you got to feel the sag on the bar. And they'd be like, what? Because it sounds like a funny word, right? And they'd laugh, but they wouldn't take it seriously. But I was serious. I was like, no, when you hang on the bar, the last part of the hang comes from being relaxed here. But being able to relax in your shoulders but be tense in the rest of your body is a really hard thing to do. Like, that is, again, why I talk about that level of mastery that you explained so eloquently about your floor. Yeah, so for me, mate, it would be that.
That's powerful. I never even really thought about that. But, like, when I see somebody who's very proficient at high bar, exactly what you're explaining is exactly what you see. Like, it's the bars already flexed kind of at the bottom, and then it's that last little bit, like, right here, where everything else is like taut as like a super taut spring, just like ready to go. But the shoulders are like kind of there to accelerate whenever that's ready to go. Wow.
Yes. I have a theory, right? That, not a theory, but the way I think about my technique for certain elements, particularly dismounts, maybe release and catches, is that the job of the technique, the role of that technique is to put me in the right place to potentially catch the bar. Whether I catch the bar is up to me, but I have to put my body in the right position to catch it. There's like a little pocket of space and time where I need to be. And if I put my body in that space, I've got a 9 out of 10 chance of catching that bar. Or if I'm doing a dismount, I put my body in the right place and space and time, and I've got a 9 out of 10 chance of sticking that dismount skill. I got really good at that. So I test that theory out now because I go to the gym every couple of weeks and swing on the bar, and so most recently I had 2 months off because I fractured my finger, and I'll like test my theory and I'll do a Kovac and see if I can catch it first attempt, no pad, catch the bar. And 9 times out of 10 I do it, which is really cool.
Wow.
I didn't quite have that level of confidence when I was a competing athlete still. And that was probably because there was more on the line. I had sponsors, like funding, all of that. Now, if I miss, who cares, right? But but I like testing out that theory of, okay, the job of my technique. So when I think about that, I really back engineer the technique of just, okay, where do I need, and for high bar, it needs to be so smooth. Like you see a lot of guys on high bar do a Kovac action and there's massive movements going on, they're moving their head. If I do a Kovac, it's like a knife through butter. There's not a lot of movement, but it's still, I come out and I've got a meter to catch the bar still. It's just pure technique.
Wow.
But yeah, but that's that one area. You take me to rings or you take me to parallel bars or to vault, I don't consider myself to be a master of those apparatus. I watch the masters and kind of see them at work. But yeah, no. So that's where I come to on that, mate. But yeah, thanks for asking me the question. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thanks for sharing. Those are the nuances that you can only learn from people who have mastered those moments in technique, because like the way that you were able to vocalize that and verbalize that is it can register. Like, so when you share that with the athletes and they're able to receive that, I know that they're going to gain a greater understanding and deeper respect for like what it means to like find that moment, that space and place and time. Like that's powerful. No, I really appreciate you sharing that. I wish I had asked you that while I was still doing gymnastics.
Well, likewise, mate. You know, exactly what you were explaining there. Like, that's perfect. So many great floor workers, the issue they have is controlling the aggression. You know, and so the way that you spoke about it there, you know, even the blind landings, right? Like, blind landings are tough. And the natural inclination under pressure is to try and stick. That is a silly move for anybody to try and do. We've got a great floor worker, the world champion at the moment, Jake Jarman, right? He's struggled for the past few years really to control all of that power he's got. In terms of the difficulty, this guy's doing gymnastics that is out of this world. But controlling that is so hard, man. That's a skill in itself. So yeah, likewise, people will really benefit from that. Just to finish off, mate, just tell me about your life since gymnastics, maybe how some of the principles and values that you learned through the sport have influenced what it is that you're doing now, and what is it that you're doing now. I argue that gymnastics is such a visual sport. It's built for social media and content, and some of the content that you put out there, mate, is absolutely unbelievable. Like the height that you get on things, how clever it is, and people love that. And it does. That is helping to grow the sport, mate. So what is it that you do now, Stacey, and what's that path look like since gymnastics?
Yeah, so since gymnastics, I've done quite a few different things. Currently, full-time in content creation and coaching. So I really have helped people transform their bodies, transform their physiques and their mindsets. And a lot of those principles that I'm able to help instill in my clients comes from things that I learned in gymnastics. And even if I didn't know it at that time, like it was like, wow, these are really instrumental to building a strong, resilient, adaptable mindset. And that's the beautiful thing about sport in general, but especially in gymnastics, is like it gives you such a sandbox for learning how to fail, such a great sandbox for learning how to become disciplined, how to show up, how to work hard, how to block out things that other people are telling you. Like a lot of times people don't ever get that arena to exercise the level of self-discipline and the mental tools that we learn as gymnasts, especially as male gymnasts, because a lot of times you're going to get the naysayers and the doubt and the like, why are you doing that? Isn't that sport for women? Like those are actually very powerful, transferable skills that you can use in any pursuit, you know, for your adult life and career. USA Gymnastics used to have the tagline, begin here, go anywhere. I thought that was the greatest tagline for like anything, you know. I'm like, yo, I might even just take that and run with it myself. But like the thing is that since gymnastics, I've had such a level of self-confidence and enough discipline to really track myself successfully into anything that I aim at doing. So after I graduated, I was an account manager. I was sitting behind a desk, and it was like, this is absolute hell to me. Like I can't stand doing this, especially the work that I was doing being so mundane. So I left that. I was coaching men's gymnastics, boys gymnastics for 3 years at World Champions Center in Houston, Texas, and coached them for 3 years, became the director of that boys program. And then after that, I left for the WWE, where I was professional wrestler for WWE NXT for roughly a year. reason I left that, I was like, you know what, this is like mad dangerous, bro. I'm like, to be honest, the risk, they're like, if I was like, it was fun. Don't get me wrong. It's probably one of the most fun roles that I've ever had in my life. But I really just thought about it. I'm like, this, if I love this, it's like gymnastics, right? Gymnastics is severely dangerous. We know this, like, but we love it. We were grown in it.
Yeah.
We were raised in it, and like, we understand it, and the risk was worth the reward.
Yeah.
For that, I was like, the risk that I'm taking is not worth the reward, because I don't really love doing this. Like, I just kind of enjoy it a little bit. But if I was to like get very like injured very badly, like, I would be like, why the hell did I do this? You know what I mean? So I after that, I was actually doing work with Disney World. The Festival of the Lion King has a role for tumble monkeys, which is essentially like you need to do gymnastics in order to do that. So I was working with people who I had competed against for years. You know, they were my coworkers now. We're doing like an acrobatic show, sort of like Cirque du Soleil. And then that was COVID time, so that sort of stripped that from me. And then ever since, I've been in full-time content creation. I create, coaching programs and plans for people to gain a crazy physique, as well as just like really change their lifestyle. Like, there are so many people who are hungry for a change and transformation in how they're living their lives, who just never got the instruction that we were blessed to receive, which is, how do I develop discipline? How do I stick to something when I don't feel like doing it? Who's going to help support me through this change? Like, the fact that we've had coaches is such a leg up. It's insane, right? Some people don't even have their parents, like, at all growing up, right? Yes. Some people don't even have teachers. Some people don't have a coach or a guide, someone to help guide them. So, like, to be able to bring that into people's lives has been super fulfilling, very rewarding for me. And I try my absolute best to present that through my content, to uplift, and through my programs, whether that's through, my ebooks that I sell for people to just use the program that I run with information on how to do so, or my coaching programs to help people really, walk that path with them. Really, it's just been a path of transformative, inspiring, positive, encouraging, and aspirational work. Really just trying to help people see that they can do more than they thought possible, because others in my life have shown me that I was capable of doing more.
Oh, that's amazing, mate. And I think if nothing else, it's worth it in that. And it's great that gymnastics has become that vehicle in which you've been able to do that and give back to so many people. Stacey, as we build up towards the Olympic Games in LA 2028, I'm super excited about the platform that might give men's artistic gymnastics. Who are the guys in the US, just to finish up, that you enjoy watching right now, that you're excited about, and what are your hopes for the American team going into LA 2028?
Yeah, absolutely. Fred Richard, first of all, I'm 100% a fan. He's a friend of mine also, but definitely a fan too, because he's just such one of those positive guys, super hardworking. Some people try to say like, oh, he's doing too much for social. No. He's not doing too much. This man is a champion for the sport. He's promoting his own personal branding. He's making sure that he's doing everything he can to do his absolute best. And I'm like so supportive of that. And he's really a leader for men's gymnastics right now. Asher Hong, I hope he continues to ride this out through LA 28. I love watching him compete. His power is insane. He's been him since he was young. It's so cool to watch him, accelerate like he has in this sport. He's insanely strong. He's insanely talented. And I feel like he approaches every event with a different level of mind. Like, he has that understanding for sure. There's some young guys, up and comers too, like that Sam's even training at Evo. Was that kid Danila
Lakin? Yeah.
Kid is insane.
Yeah.
I'm like watching his stuff on like one of his reels popped up on my Explore page the other day, and I'm like, what the heck? Like, watching the sport progress at this level is like absolutely insane to me. Like, every gymnast from as long as I can remember has always said it, but everyone's always like, yeah, I'm glad I got out when I did, and now here I am thinking, I'm like, I'm glad I got out when I did, because like the level of their skills is just like absolutely absolutely insane. But, if we go through, you can see all the guys in these collegiate programs doing extremely well, the skills that they're doing, and the level of difficulty that they're pushing while keeping the execution high is incredibly inspiring to see. So as we lead up to LA 2028, I'm sure that there will be somebody who really starts to pull ahead and stand out even more. Mm-hmm. But I'm just excited to see what the team does. And look, a podium finish was great. We got bronze, and now I think these guys are aiming for gold. It's not they're not aiming for bronze, they're aiming for gold. So I think that if they continue on the path that they're on, that they have a great chance at doing so.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, mate. It's really exciting to watch and just see that. I think the advantage that you guys have over in the States is that I think you naturally sit with a glass half full type mindset. Yep. And you kind of champion success and people doing well. In the UK, we kind of like to knock people down. It's like our guilty pleasure. Build someone up a little bit and then just smash them down as quick as you can, right? There's that real tall poppy syndrome, and I think that's going to play into your guys' advantage, I think. And I think you do. I think also as well, I spoke to Brody Malone, and another great champion, and Brody said, the advantage we have right now is that so many guys in the national team that represent the US at the highest level came through the college system, so they understand the team aspect to the sport, and I think that's a real advantage. And maybe in the past generations that you competed within, many of the guys maybe had come from just the elite side of the sport, didn't have that college experience, and then there was a clash of cultures when it came to the national team. But thank you so much, mate, for sharing your story. Absolutely brilliant. I was a fan from afar on the other side of the pond watching your gymnastics growing up. I hope you end up helping the sport in some way, mate. I can't help but feel like eventually gymnastics will get to a point where the top athletes have their own little teams around them, and you absolutely have so much value, particularly in terms of floor and vault, to bring and give it back to the sport. And it's great to see what Sam and Syke are doing over in Evo. So I hope that you do stay in the sport, mate, and if nothing else, just remain a big fan of the sport, because you've got a lot to give. Just to finish up, mate, where can people follow your journey online?
Yeah, absolutely. You can find me on all social media platforms at Stacey Ervin Jr., just my name. And if you want to stay plugged in with me on a deeper level, you can go to StaceyErvinJr.com and find me on there. That's where a lot of my offerings and everything will come through too. So if someone's looking for, transformation in their life and they need that guidance and that assistance, I'm there for them in that capacity. So at Stacey Ervin Jr., pretty much everywhere. Sam, I gotta say thank you, man, for the conversation. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the insightful questions and the opportunity to reflect, but also thank you for what you're doing to promote the sport and to keep people involved and let people hear what this sport does for people outside of, being able to do really cool tricks, right? Like a lot of times people just look at gymnastics and think that, oh, yeah, they're just doing really crazy superhuman type things. But we know from being on the inside that the most transformative part of the work that gymnasts do is that they're undertaking such a rigorous level of self-discipline and determination and establishing so many, for lack of a better word, edifying values that's the real essence of what the sport is doing. And so I just want to thank you for giving platform and voice to that and sharing people's stories that are able to help translate that in many different ways and flavors for whoever whoever decides to tune in.
Oh, you're very welcome, mate. And thank you for being so kind and generous throughout the whole of this podcast. I really appreciate that. And for me, I sit and talk to Sam and I'm like, how do people not know these guys' stories? They're incredible. So if we can just share them, and try and build that awareness of how amazing these athletes are. There are not many sports like gymnastics where these guys and girls are training 30, 40 hours a week as 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Like, they're incredible human beings. So whatever I can do to build the sport up, give the athletes a platform and encourage them, I'm going to keep doing it, mate. But yeah, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to sit and speak to you, Stacey. And just keep doing what you're doing, mate, and fighting the good fight and being a positive human being, because I'm sure it inspires a lot of people. And it's been great to have this conversation, mate. Thank you very much.
Thank you.